The hot take industry, it is an ever-changing one. Sure, there are Speak for Your Pizza-esque television shows with debate encouraged, but there's also tweets to be had and blogs to be written. It does feel like during the offseason that the best way for someone in our shoes to make any headway is by being extremely positive, especially about something that's getting a ton of hype. Take the Houston Texans, who have been being praised for months by probably every single NFL analyst at least one point. No one's calling them frauds. No one's questioning whether or not they're going to be the team that we all hope they will be this coming season, even with the fourth toughest schedule in the NFL. And yesterday we had a conversation wondering who's going to be the first talking head analyst to ask a fair question about the Texans, and on top of that, perhaps push back against them. And a man who you may remember for yelling at Patrick Creighton on these very radio waves.
Do the show!
Jason Braddock, who has always been great to me and I do think knows a great deal about football, wrote an article for sportingnews.com. In this article, where he talks about some of those things that I just brought up, about how in sports media today, generally, people are looking for things that praise their team or to get a big old pants tent over a quote or somebody, whether it's a player actually on the team or an analyst, talking about how good this team can be or about why this team does things differently. In the middle of an article that is titled as such, Texans hubris could be their undoing, Braddock wrote this: if I could give the Texans organization a bit of professional, stern advice that is meant in their best interest, it would be, quote, kindly, comma, STFU, which we all know means shut the bleep up. This article was ratioed, if you will, not violently, but
not the worst we've seen.
A lot of people pushed back on that, even though I thought Jason raised some fair points, saying, what has Houston accomplished again? Another AFC South championship, sure, followed by another one win in the playoff, followed by a loss. I hate to be the one to say this, but someone has to stop talking and do something that has never been done in Houston. This false bravado from an organization that is talking before ever winning anything is a turnoff to those not blinded by fandom and to everyone outside the city of Houston, a turnoff to everyone who is not a Texans fan. So, Joe George,
yeah,
we've had some conversations over the last couple of weeks, and I know that from time to time, CJ Stroud has perhaps...
He talks a lot.
Talked to the point of annoying you.
It's not... Yeah, it's if they don't win this year, they are going to be dumped on relentlessly. Honestly, if they don't have a good year, Paul, they're going to be, I think, a little bit of a joke. Like all the hype, all the media stuff that they're talking about, standing on business, and all these interviews that CJ has done, if they don't win their division at a minimum, it's going to be kind of embarrassing. And people are going to criticize CJ for it. And if you don't think they will, then look back to J.J. Watt. J.J. Watt himself, in interviews with Part of My Take, has talked about how the national criticism that he's gotten when he was in every commercial on our television and the Texans were not having good seasons. Because J.J. should focus on football more, making the Texans better than being on every commercial. When Astros players are struggling, Astros fans say it about their own players. They've said it this year about Alex Bregman. Maybe stop filming HEB commercials and hit a baseball more consistently.
I don't know. Money's nice.
Money is nice.
I'm not telling the guy to not go get that dollar. Get that dollar.
I kind of agree with that. But, it's just, he's doing all these interviews So is Tank a little bit. Like they're putting themselves out there for criticism if the season doesn't go well. You just got to back it up. You got to back up your words. That's all you got to do, and you're fine. And I have zero issue with it. But if the season doesn't go well, like, we're going to clown them for it.
I don't know if I'll really clown them for the way that they're talking right now. I think other fan bases will for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe some in local media will say, hey, they got a little bit too big for their britches. The ego became very big. They ate all of the rat poison out there, which we talked about yesterday with Tyler Dunn. You can check out that interview on our show podcast or on our YouTube channel. But, I mean, if that is something that blows up in their face, it's a learning experience, and you would assume that they would learn from it.
For sure. It's not like it's the end of the world. Like,
so that's why I feel like to maybe the point of those who are annoyed with all of the bravado or confidence, however you want to term it, I would just say, well, let's see it actually blow up in their face first, as opposed to saying, hey, what happens if you screw up? Because no athlete thinks, especially a young one, that had a successful rookie season like C.J. Stroud did, or first year as a head coach like DeMeco Ryans did. No one is thinking to themselves, oh, man, this is going to be bad, going into it. So if they're going to be honest and transparent with us, I like it. I feel like more players should feel confident doing it. And honestly, I mean, if they do live up to the expectations, more teams and more players will do it. And I think that's good.
Yeah,
there's more to talk about.
And on the flip side of it, too, to go against my own opinion here and defend CJ a little bit, recently at one of the OTAs, Tank Dell was talking about how much CJ was getting on their ass about mistakes that were being made in practice, that he at practice is a even better and more vocal leader for them this year than he was last year. And it was already presumed that he was a great leader for this football team. You can do both things at once, I think. You can be in the public eye and doing interviews and acknowledging your beefs with the Indianapolis Colts and talking about the run-ins with the Panthers and all these things and giving the bravado of, they're going to have their chance to get me this year. They probably won't, basically, is what CJ's been saying, and still have a great season by being a great leader, a great teammate, great quarterback. Both things can be true. And honestly, if I was going to bet on it, Paul, I would bet on both things being true. Like, I'd still bet on the Texans making the playoffs this year and us not having to have these conversations. But they talk a lot. And I think a lot of people have noticed that, including Jason.
I don't think, though, that they've really said anything like, we're the best, or they have gone back and forth with the Indianapolis Colts players who have been, I think, playfully talking trash publicly, specifically Zaire Franklin, EJ Speed, their two linebackers. But I don't feel like they've said, we're the dream team like Vince Young did when he joined the Philadelphia Eagles back in the day.
Yeah, or like
only for that to go up in flames. Like, there hasn't been one specific quote where you look at it and you're like, whoa, they are really feeling themselves.
C.J. Stroud did say he has 5 number 1 receivers. He did say that,
but he didn't. But that's okay. Like
the Titans said Treylon Burks is like Julio Jones and Terrell Owens. I mean,
now he's barely going to make the roster.
So look, that happens from time to time. Of course, you're going to talk up your players. And to be fair to C.J. Stroud, technically, if he's including Robert Woods in that conversation, and I mean, you can make that argument. Technically,
if Robert Woods is your number 1 receiver, you should jump off a bridge.
Robert Woods in 2019 had some of the best numbers in the NFL. That's what I'm saying, though. It's like, he was the number 1 wide receiver in the NFL at one point. So that's my defense of that. Anyway,
I mean, Paul, we made fun of the Buffalo Bills since 2022 when everyone said that they were going to beat the Chiefs. If that happens with the Texans and then they miss the playoffs, which we both think is possible for this team to miss the playoffs, they will get clowned.
No doubt. And we'll cross that bridge when we get there. I mean, I feel like we can't be looking ahead thinking it will happen. For me, with the Bills,
I'm saying it's possible. You're saying it's not possible.
I don't think I said it's not possible.
You're saying we shouldn't talk about it. What are you saying?
What I'm saying right now is that I don't think that they have said anything that puts a massive target on their back to the point where they're going to be so embarrassed. It's what we were talking about with the Bills. When we talked about the Bills and all the hype that they had, And part of this is me growing up a Patriots fan. It's like, well, the Bills have always sucked. So first off, relax. You can make that same argument about the Texans, no doubt about it. But for the most part, too, with the Bills, it wasn't like the Bills were really saying anything about themselves. It was more or less like everyone's like, oh, yeah, the Bills, undefeated. Oh, yeah, here we go.
Yeah, when I think it was an NFL Network thing, like everyone picked them to win the AFC.
Yes.
No
Yeah.
one picked the Chiefs to win the AFC. Everyone picked the Buffalo Bills.
That part is crazy.
Yeah, like this isn't.
And I don't think anyone's picking them above the Chiefs right now. I think
Yeah.
everyone's like, well, they're the Clubber Lang to Rocky in Rocky 3.
Yeah, like no one is. You watched it last night?
No, I watched it on Saturday.
Okay.
Before
like
drama.
this isn't Shador Sanders predicting that Colorado's going to win the Big 12 this year and make the college football playoff like he did. Like CJ's not outwardly saying we're going to the Super Bowl, so he hasn't done that yet. I'm not totally convinced it's not going to happen yet before the season starts.
It's also the like overall press tour that he's been on, where he's been on 5 different podcasts, and every single time he's saying something, and everyone's like, "Hell yeah, CJ!" It's like I guess that's what it is. There's every time anyone involved with the Texans opens their mouth this offseason, it's nothing but applause. Where we talked about, or did we talk about it? I don't know. I do 2 shows every day. Nick Caserio on with 610, and he was
Haven't yet, actually.
He was making fun of the
other team war rooms and how they collapsed.
Yeah, and then Jeremy Branham just pulled up a video from when they drafted Will Anderson, and guess what everyone was doing?
And Christian Harris
Yeah,
and like everyone they've ever drafted.
Everyone they've drafted, they do the same thing, but it gets met with like, yeah, see, Nick Caserio taking everyone down a peg, laughing at the Arizona Cardinals for doing something.
I mean, for the first time in most Texans fans' lives, they have a reason to drink the Kool-Aid, and they're drinking a lot of it. So, like, that's part of this, too. Like, what you're saying is everything they say, people are just all about it. And rightfully so, because this has the chance to be the best year in the history of this franchise. Not just this year, but the following year. Like, they can...
It's not that high of a bar to clear.
I know. They
They're
win
right.
2 playoff games.
I know. It's
They're going to get to the conference championship game.
It's a pathetic bar, but they're probably gonna cross it this year and next year. So...
Ooh, there we go.
Yeah, I mean...
This year and next year.
This year or next year.
Oh,
Or
I heard and.
There's
I
an
heard
or. There's
and.
an or.
No, if they make the
Check the
AFC
tape.
title game, they will not make it the next year.
Joe George is going Luka Doncic right here. He's twirling his finger in the
Where's
air.
the challenge?
Let's challenge that. It's Kalon and George, ESPN 97.5, 92.5, 713-780-3776 to call in, to text in. Honestly, I'm throwing the gauntlet down to y'all out there. I want to hear the zag from one of you guys. Because Jason Braddock had his zag, and now he's walking away from the industry altogether.
They said it's not because of this article.
It was
the timing's suspicious.
It was a well-written article, and I feel like the pushback should not have been what it is. I really think that there should be somebody that's, the Dark Knight out there that's pushing back on this, but I'm not going to be that guy.
Have Texans fans turned into Astros fans? 713-780-3776.
Without 2 World Series and 7 appearances and a cheating scandal that unified his whole city?
One off-season title. All right? And new uniforms.